Relations Consultant. She is currently Literary Convener ISISAR, Kolkata, and Editorial Counselor for India in International Writers Journal, USA. Her maiden poetry collection, P.N. Chants, has been recognized as a unique record of excellence by the India Book of Records for its never before attempted movie reviews and management topics in rhyming poetry. A recipient of several awards, Madam Iyengar is a regular at LitFest in India and overseas and to present her poems. The next speaker is Dr. Jesse from Department of Indian and World Literatures, the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. His areas of specialization are contemporary theory, post-colonial theory and literature, Indian writing in English, diaspora literature, feminism, cultural studies, Orientalism, and digital humanities. He is a member of the panel for research at Royal University of editor-in-chief Literary Journal and is on editorial board of various other research journals. Welcome, sir. And last but not the least, we have from City Beautiful, Dr. Indu Bala Singh, retired professor of English. She did her PhD on gender relations and cultural ideology in Indian cinema, a study of literary adaptations for the celluloid. She is also a celebrated documentary filmmaker. I also acknowledge the presence of our worthy principal, Dr. Sangam Kapoor, under whose able stewardship we are holding this panel. I will also introduce the other team members of our faculty, Ma'am Aparna Kaushal, the coordinator for this event. You can just put your hand up. And Dr. Shalini Vadva, Dr. Stuti Sharma, Ms. Shuppreet Sandhu, and our technical hosts for today are Dr. Karuna Babbar and Mr. Chetan Kumar Gupta. You know, few years back, when offline teaching was the norm, I happened to ask my BA1 students on 8th March that what do they think? Why do we celebrate this as International Women's Day? So the answers were quite interesting. Most of them, equated it with Valentine's Day, Father's Day, and Mother's Day, like we celebrated it all these days. And some of the girls did talk about, on this day we think of empowering women and, to make some strategies. But I think today we also have some students who are listening to this discussion, this panel discussion. So I will just recount the historical significance of this day. The seed of this revolution was sowed in 1908, when in New York, about 15,000 women marched and demanded equal pay and right to vote. And in 1909, so this day was marked by the Socialist Party of America and declared as the first Women's Day. And the idea of celebrating this International Women's Day emanated from a woman herself. She is Clara Zetkin. Clara Zetkin in 1910, during an international press conference of working women being held in Copenhagen, she suggested this idea of celebrating this International Women's Day. And there were about 100 women from 17 different countries in that conference who readily agreed to this idea. But then 8th March also, of course, March is celebrated as the, Women's History Month in America. But the date 8th also has its own historical significance. It was on 23rd February that in Russia, the ladies held a peace march demanding bread and peace, which forced their ruler, the ruler at that time, King Nicholas, to resign from the throne And at that time, they followed the Julian calendar. So the date was 23rd Feb. But now we follow the Gregorian calendar. So the date falls on 8th March. So that is why 8th March is chosen by United Nations to celebrate the International Women's Day. This day got more recognition when United Nations back in 1975. They started celebrating this day with a theme. The first celebrate these days because a lot of women get flowers. I mean, the males buy the flowers and they give it to the women, and even their colleagues or anybody, their mothers, their sisters, their daughters. So this is how Women's Day is celebrated in different parts of the world. And I already mentioned that America celebrates March as the Women's History Month. So without keeping you further away from the meaningful discussion we are about to hold with our panelists, I would now request Honorary Principal Dr. Sangam Kapoor to welcome the guests formally. And I will just finish with Here's to Strong Women. May we know them, may we be them, and may we raise them. Have a nice day, everyone. Ma'am Kapoor.
Thank you, Gitanjali. A woman is indeed marvelous. She can handle trouble and carry heavy burdens. She holds happiness, love, and opinions. She smiles when she feels like screaming. She sings when she feels like crying, cries when happy, and laughs when afraid. She fights for what she believes in. Her love is unconditional and she's perfect being. Good morning, everyone. Today we are celebrating the International Women's Day, and I'm extremely glad to welcome the literati to an insightful session that celebrates women all over the globe today. A woman is a personification of love, resilience, strength, and beauty. Although her existence should be celebrated every day, but to mark her contributions, we have International Women's Day dedicated to her. This day is celebrated to observe women's success and the role played by them in cultural, political, social, economic development. Now, moreover, this contribution and this celebration is a sign of appreciation, respect, love, and care towards women in our lives and in the society. The modern women are no longer dependent on men. They are independent and self confident in every aspect and are capable of doing everything equal to men. Furthermore, we have to accept that both men and women contribute equally to the betterment of home and society. Every woman is extraordinary, no matter where she works, whether it's home or office. We are moving towards an accelerating time in history where the world accepts gender balance. Now the world notices their absence and celebrates their presence. Today, I have the privilege to welcome Dr. Nirmal Jaswal, Dr. Jai Singh, Dr. Indubala Singh, and Dr. Padma Aingar, who have considered to spare their time for PGGC-11 family to share their inputs on women in leadership achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world. I congratulate Mrs. Aparna Kaushal, Head of PG Department of English, and all her team members for taking this initiative to gather on the academic platform to celebrate the Women's Day, who contribute equally to home and society and nation. So I'm sure today's panel discussion will be an enjoyable and meaningful experience for all of us. Wish you all a very happy Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I'll request Ma'am Iyengar to open the session for panel discussion.
Sorry, was not able to hear you properly.
Ma'am, we are requesting you to speak now.
Me?
And yes, I'll just wait. Just Chetan will be playing a video. And now, then I request after the video that you start with the panel discussion.
Sure.
So I'll just now request Chetan to play the video of Madam Nirmal Jaswal, who is unable to join us for this meet because she is in a different time zone. She is in Canada right now, and she's a very celebrated poetess who will be putting forth her views on Women's International Days. So here is her video. Chetan will be playing her video in a bit.
Hi friends, good morning, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤੇ ਨਮਸਕਾਰ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਵੂਮਨ ਡੇ ਦੀ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਦੇ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ। ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਵੂਮਨ ਡੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਨਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਹਾਲ ਦਿਨ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵੂਮਨ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਵੂਮਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈਣਾ ਵੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ
due to some technical
ਵਕਤਵ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਮੇਰੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ
I think
ਹੈ।
there'll be just please have patience for 2-3 minutes. Chetan will be playing the video very shortly. Chetan, can you hear me? Okay. So while Chetan is playing the video, I will just give you a favorite quote of mine. This is from Hillary Clinton. She, said that women in the world are the largest untapped reservoir of talent. So we must, on International Women's Day, we must think of, tapping this talent. And, every woman has the right to showcase her talent. And also, there's another one, another of my favorite quotes for this day, which I tell my students. That is Malala Yousafzai. She says that we realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced. So that is the time actually women realized in the history of the world. They realized that our, the importance of our voice when we were asked to be silent, when our voice was muffled. So that is the time when actually women took out these marches, and that is how the revolt or so-called feminism movement started in the history. And quote by Malala Yousafzai is that there are two powers in the world. One is the sword, and the other is the pen. And there's a third power stronger than both, and that of women. So let's teach our Chetan. Are you
Morning.
there, or should I
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ
stop talking? Please give me a
ਤੇ
signal
ਨਮਸਕਾਰ
when to stop talking, because
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ
the
ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ
teachers can go on.
ਵਿਮਨ ਡੇ ਦੀ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਦੇ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ
Chetan,
ਲੱਗਦਾ
can you hear me?
ਕਿ ਵਿਮਨ ਡੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਨਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਹਾਲ ਦਿਨ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵਿਮਨ
Okay, so should I stop talking and
ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੇ
over to Chetan for the video?
ਤੇ ਵਿਮਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ
Okay. Okay. So here to Ma'am Nirval Jaspal.
ਹਾਈ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ ਗੁੱਡ ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤੇ ਨਮਸਕਾਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਵਿਮਨ ਡੇ ਦੀ ਮੁਬਾਰਕ ਦੇ ਰਹੀ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਵਿਮਨ ਡੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਨਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਹਾਲ ਦਿਨ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਵਿਮਨ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਸਾਰੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਵਿਮਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈਣਾ ਵੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ
I think there's no audio.
ਵਕਤਵ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਮੇਰੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਹੈ औरत मैं औरत कविता मेरी थोड़ी जी वड्डी कविता है पर मैं थोड़ा जिहा इहनूं शॉर्ट करके पढ़ांगी उस तो पहला पढ़न तो पहला मैं प्रिंसिपल साहब गीतांजलि प्रोफेसर गीतांजलि
I think we can continue
इंग्लिश
with the
डिपार्टमेंट
discussion and we can play this video later on.
सारे नूं
Sorry for the
सारे दिन शुक्रिया करदी हां कि तुसीं
I
मैनूं
think
इत्थे
we have to
याद
play the
कीता
video
एक
later
तरह
on.
दी गीतांजलि
So we
स्पेशली
move on to our panel discussion. I invite
Yes, ma'am.
ते मैनूं जानदे ने
Later on. Sorry for the technical problem. I think we'll have to play the video later on. So we move on to our panel discussion. I invite Ma'am Padma Iyengar to start it, and then Mr. Jay Singh can join her, and Ma'am Indu Bala. So I request all of you to please initiate the discussion. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I am Padmaja Iyengar Reddy from Hyderabad. Respected Principal Dr. Angam Kapoor Datta, Professor Geetanjali Kalra.
Yes, ma'am, you are very
Thank you very much. And the faculty members of the PG Department of English, PG College, Chandigarh, and my distinguished fellow panelist, Dr. Nirmal Jaswal, in absentia, Dr. Indubala Singh, and Dr. Jay Singh, who is my fellow Hyderabadi. I wish you all a very happy International Women's Day. My special thanks to my dear friend, Dr. Anuradha Bhattacharya, for suggesting my name for this panel discussion. Women in leadership achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. The theme for this panel discussion today is also incidentally the theme for the UN International Women's Day 2021. In her statement for International Women's Day 2021, that is 8th March today, UN Women Executive Director Fumzile Lambo Jekuka said, "We need women's representation that reflects all women and girls in all their diversity and abilities and across all cultural, social, economic, and political situations. This is the only way we will get real societal change that incorporates women in decision making as equals and benefits us all." Women's full and effective participation and leadership in all areas of life drives progress for everyone. Yet, women are still underrepresented in public life and in decision making, as revealed in UN Secretary General's recent report. Women are heads of state or government in 22 countries only, and only 24.9% of national parliamentarians are women. Can I continue? At the current rate of progress, gender equality among heads of government will perhaps take another 130 years. That's the statistic. We have seen from our past experiences and the current ones too, that wherever and whenever women lead, we see positive results. In fact, some of the most efficient and exemplary responses to COVID-19 pandemic were driven and led by women. And women, especially young women, are at the forefront of diverse and inclusive movements online and on the streets for social justice, climate change, and equality in all parts of the world. Yet, women under 30 are less than 1% of the parliamentarians worldwide. Quite a strange statistic. Women of the world want, and they rightfully deserve, an equal present and future free from any kind of stereotype role plays on the domestic and the professional front, especially a domestic front without the frequent inbuilt violence, and a future that's peaceful with equal rights and opportunities for all. And above all, sustainable so that women see better future in their professional and personal lives. I believe that to get women there, women are needed at every table where decisions are being made, especially in these COVID-19 times, for the pandemic's challenges have impacted the women the most on all the fronts from all the sides. These times have been very trying and challenging for women, working women in India especially those in leadership positions who have been compelled to carry on their professional work from home, parallelly handling the challenges of cooking, taking care of children, and their online lessons and jobs, and also making way.
Renu Arora, your friend.
Sorry, can I continue?
Yeah, ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. Somebody's audio is on. I request, who is managing Google Meet to please mute those people, other than you.
Thank you. May I continue or shall I start from the beginning? Shall I just continue because we've lost a lot of time? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think especially on the domestic front where, without the frequent inbuilt violence and a future, that's what is required for women, that's peaceful with equal rights and opportunities for all, and above all, sustainable rights, so that women see future in their professional and personal lives. I believe that to get women there, women are needed at every table where decisions are being made, especially in these COVID-19 times, for the pandemic's challenges have impacted the women the most on all the fronts from all the sides. These times have been trying and challenging for women, working women in India especially those in leadership positions who have been compelled to carry on their professional work from home, parallelly handling the challenges of cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and their online lessons, and also making way for their own online work in leadership roles. COVID-19 pandemic suddenly saw the disappearance of domestic helps, maids, cooks, ayahs, etc. in households that could afford them. Those who never had this luxury additionally managed the office work from home alongside their domestic responsibilities. And keeping children confined and engaged at home has been one of the greatest challenges for women during COVID times. COVID-19 also saw mother, father, and children sharing virtual space, in fact, vying for the virtual space in several households that had only one computer or desktop or just one laptop, or just one smartphone. Parents needing it for their office work and children needing it for their school and college lessons. And it largely fell on the women to take care of the children, having to take online lessons as they were confined to their homes with schools and colleges shut down for several months now. In this context, this year's International Women's Day is a rallying point and clarion call for not only gender equality, but also generation equality to act for an equal future for all women, girls, and girl children. I have put forth the challenges that women face during these tough COVID-19 times and hope that as we proceed with our panel discussion, we will hopefully see some doables and solutions like promoting flexible working arrangements on a continuous basis, prioritizing services to prevent gender-based domestic violence, women's full and effective participation and leadership in all areas of life, driving progress for everyone. I'm a poet, and so I would like to conclude my presentation with a poem that highlights a challenge that a vast majority of women face, including working women holding high positions, more so in COVID-19 times. My poem is titled The Dark Night. The rustling leaves in a tussle with the gentle breeze, the sounds of silence traveling with a graceful ease, serenade gently into senses with calm and peace, and provide the day's stress and strain a happy release. The calmness, stillness, and the quiet of the night, the rustling tree leaves and the crisscrossing light of the moon playing hide and seek with the clouds are soon wrapped up by a sky in a thick dark shroud. And then suddenly, screams pierce the silence. The dark clouds and the crisscrossing moonlight stop in their tracks and watch all the violence a lockdown frustrated male inflicts on his wife. My poetry too stands still. It forgets to rhyme at will and just watches in horror, those eyes filled with terror. The abuse and blows continue to shower. His addictions are not within his power. As darkness envelops her sobs and sighs, the corona clouds fully envelop her sky. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And a very heart-touching poem by you. Now I invite Dr. Jess Singh.
Good afternoon to all of you.
His views.
Am I audible to all of you? Yeah, ma'am, if I'm audible to all of you. Yeah. So thank you. And thanks for giving me this opportunity to share my views with all of you. And this particular day, Women's Day, and when we say Happy Women's Day, we seem to give respect to all women. And apparently, when I say Happy Women's Day, yeah, and when I say Happy Women's Day, it looks very nice. And everybody who says this particular phrase at least once in a year looks like a very civilized person. But when we look into the epistemology and ontology and their implication on the society and on the women, they are not that positive. When we say Happy Women's Day, we recognize women's role as women. However, this recognition is more of imposition. Not including the biological aspects of being women, are phagocentric, and they deprive a woman of the rights to define the idea of not womanhood. Of course, within this framework, women can define herself as women. But what is denied? The power, the vocabulary, the opportunity to describe, to define herself as a human being. The best thing to our fellows who are categorized as women of the burden of womanhood, which is a socio-cultural, economic, and political construct. And women should be given an opportunity to feel like independent human beings. And all women should try to get out of the idea of this womanhood. I am talking two contradictory things. One, it's the day which is celebrated as Women's Day. And I'm talking about the idea to get out of the idea, to get out of the concept, the notion of womanhood. And they should start looking critically at the phagocentric notions of womanhood, culture, nature, and even humanism itself. And it's a very contradictory statement in itself. To prove a point, the idea of culture, nation, even the idea of being women, how they can be very problematic. In my life, the first paper I presented, it was presented in a conference on a theme related to women. I don't remember the title exactly, but it was something related to feminism. And I was the only paper presenter who was a male, others were women. And almost 95% of the women paper presenters started their papers with a single quotation. Yatra naryastu pujante tatra ramante devata. Without ever knowing the implications of the quotation within the text and outside the text. They were under the influence of the greatness of Indianness, the greatness of Indian culture, the greatness of Indian philosophy. And they never ever tried to get out of it unless we get outside the idea, we cannot see it. Here I am reminded of a short story written by Rabindranath Tagore. While talking about how Abhimanyu gets killed in Mahabharata, he says, getting into the Chakravyuh is not a big deal. In Mahabharata it says only he knew how to enter it, but Tagore says it's not a big deal. The day we are born, we are inside the Chakravyuh. The big thing is to get out of it. And the day a girl child is born, she is in a Chakravyuh. And she does not get any idea, neither from the movies, nor from the literature, nor from the role models within the society, to get out of the Chakravyuh. And finally, she is strangulated by the Chakravyuh. And he gives one more analogy. He says you keep one fish in a jar for some time, and after that you release that fish in the ocean. Even though the fish is in a bigger water body, it will circulate in the circle. Same periphery. Because it is trained to perform like this. And that is what is happening to women. They are, even when they are free, they are not free actually. I just tell you one more simple discussion that I had with one so-called feminist woman. And I was talking about Kabir Das one couplet. I don't know whether it was actually written by, it actually belongs to Kabir Das or no, but it is assigned to Kabir Das. नारी की झाई परत अंधा हो तो भुजंग, तिनकी कौन गति जो नित नारी के संग. And immediately that feminist woman said, no, Kabir Das is not talking about all women. He is talking only about that kind of women. Now, what is this category of that kind of women? The women who sells their bodies. If a woman sells her body, she is a prostitute. But if her body is sold by the authorities, maybe the social authorities, family authorities, then she is not. And after all, in our world, everybody is selling. We are all in the market. What we are selling and what we are not selling means there is nothing like, we are not selling. We are all sellable commodities. But women is considered a sellable commodity in all forms. Sometimes she is sold by giving money, as it happens in case of marriages. She is sold and the money is given to compensate to the buyer. And when we talk about all these things, I'm reminded of Simone de Beauvoir, who says, one is not born but rather becomes a woman. We are not born males, we are not born females. Sometimes I think, whether it is the presence of XX chromosome or XY chromosome, means if it is the Y chromosome that makes the entire difference, or is it something else, an equivalent of Y chromosome in our social discourses? When Simone de Beauvoir says these things, she is appropriating and reinterpreting this doctrine of constituting act from the phenomenological tradition. What the modern thinkers, rather postmodern thinkers, talk about, it is all about performativity. A woman is trained to perform in a particular manner throughout her life. You watch movies, the hero and villain are fighting. The heroine just looks at them, doing nothing, as if she is a non-entity. She does not have any strength in her body. She just waits and watches it. And the same model is they try to replicate in the society. This is performativity. And now, as it is about, because if we keep speaking, we can speak for the entire day. So I don't want to speak that much. When we talk about the relationship between COVID-19 and its impact on women. When we talk about women, we talk only about the women from the upper class and upper caste societies, especially the teachers and others who got the opportunity to work from home. But what actually happened to women from the marginalized sections, that is another story. And apparently, it seems that this corona, when we talk about corona, it's not a kind of disease that affects only people from one gender. But when we talk about the impact of COVID, its impact on different genders is different. Its impact are gendered impacts, rather than creating gender blinds which only appear neutral but can have devastating consequences for women whose sufferings and vulnerabilities are not sufficiently addressed. Policies must instead be gender sensitive and thus take gender relations into account. And what we missed during the corona time, when the women working in the informal sector, they lost their jobs. On the one hand, if you talk about the red light areas of Delhi, Mumbai, and other parts, the women who were getting sometimes employment there, they were not getting enough employment, they were not getting enough number of clients. On the other hand, more number of women, because they lost their traditional jobs, were moving towards that particular job. And nowhere in none of the policies, in none of the platforms, these issues were discussed or debated, as if the women from the marginal sections, the women, already women are on the fringes, but within women, the category of women, there are women who are on the fringes. There is hardly any concern for them. So with these words, I will say thank you to give me that you gave me an opportunity. Though I am a very traditional kind of person when I talk about my personality, but when I speak intellectually, I am unconventionally, I speak quite unconventionally. If somebody has felt hurt, so sorry. Thank you.
No, sir, it was very, informative to hear your voice. And now I will invite our third speaker, Dr. Indu Bala Singh. Sorry, I'll speak again. I'll invite our third speaker for the day, Ma'am Indu Bala Singh, to put forth her views, and then we can all, start with the panel discussion. So, ma'am, over to Ma'am Indu Bala Singh.
Can you see me and hear me? Hi, everybody. A very good morning. Okay, thank you. I'm so glad there were such lovely who spoken a lot on the theories. In fact, during my PhD dissertation, which I was working on, I read thousands of books on theories and, of course, on cinema and the adaptations on literature, how they are done. When you're studying cinema, you're studying life also, but then cinema is not life. And then I was studying gender relations, which is very much relevant to the topic today. Theories we all study, and we all know what is practical life. Both the speakers before me have spoken up beautifully about it. But right now, since our focus is on the pandemic, the lockdown crisis, which we are all aware froze almost everything for all of us, beyond gender, for men as well as women. But for women, it was a double whammy. They had to manage their homes, and especially teachers, they had to work, do online classes, and so on. And there were senior people like me who had to learn afresh. पढ़े लिखे अनपढ़ हो गए, to put it that way. Today also, I had to take the help of somebody to help me get into this. Well, we have to move on in life. I am one of those who always has believed in positivity. One has to have resilience, one has to have courage and face situations headlong, confront them and carry on. And I can give you some great examples of people from the lower strata, but I'll talk about myself. Since I am a documentary maker and now that I'm retired, but I still keep writing and keep doing documentaries. And just before the pandemic, there was a documentary shoot which was planned, and I'd arranged a camera person, the location, and everything was worked. And suddenly the lockdown was announced. I felt so disheartened, naturally, because you worked so hard all these months to do all that, and suddenly you don't know how long the lockdown is going to go on. It went on and on, days, weeks, months. And I said, my God, I just want to do this work. And what do I do? So then I thought, let me start writing whatever I was planning to do. I had written a small script because the shoot was to be done visually. Though while writing, I had visually, you have to imagine. So I said, let me put it down and I started writing the book. And then while writing the book, by the month of October, my book was ready. Unfortunately, my husband fell sick. He was in the hospital for a month. But anyway, life goes on. And it goes on for everybody. And now the book is almost ready to cut it short. But then about my grandchildren were come to see me. They were planning to come to see us in the month of June or July, which they could not. So there was a double thing. You know, your creative juices are flowing, you're writing, you're speaking, you're doing everything, but you want to interact. You know, we all lost human touch. We wanted to meet people, we could not. There was despair all around for people of our strength also. And then what do you do? So I said, now let me start. I used to look at nature, enjoy the nature. Got enough time to do all that because there was no socializing and no outings. So I started writing storytelling videos on nature, about what I'm saying, and some from my imagination. And I started telling my husband to shoot me, and I used to speak. So since I was not so very conscious about, I was not very much aware how to use the podcast, I said, let me do the storytelling videos, which worked very well. And I sent it to my grandchildren. And then I thought of sharing it on the Facebook. And so many of my students spread all over the world all said, ma'am, you're looking forward to another storytelling video of yours. So this was the creative work which I tried to do. And we were all down in the lockdown. We were all doing things. But then, yes, I saw the women, as you were all talking about, the lower strata. They were the ones who faced the worst things. It's very good to talk about theories and very good to talk about, it should be like this or it should be like that. One day I heard two women screaming at the top of their voice, Kele lelo, Kele lelo. One was a very young voice, the other one was a little older one. So I ventured out to see who are these ladies who are selling these bananas. And they were walking. They did not even have a cycle. And I just spoke to them. I said, what is this? Our husbands are caught up in the lockdown and we have no source of income. We have to feed our children. So we brought bananas from the local side and we are selling it at a little more profit. I said, okay, the deal is done. You come to me every day. I'll buy bananas from you. Okay. And then I told my neighbors and everybody, I said, we cannot do much. We cannot venture out. But at least they are feeling empowered by doing things which their husbands were doing. They never ventured out of the house. People like us, it's very easy to say, we've all ventured out of the house. We know what problems you face, what it is like to be in the public place. Even if though we are privileged, we do know gender matters. It's a Women's Day. We've all faced situations in life and we've all learned to wriggle out and sometimes even cried and faced and got upset and shared it with our friends. And that is why it's strong. And I'm sure you all remember that girl who cycled down a migrant father in Bihar from Delhi. And that was a young girl who was studying in 7th or 8th standard. So that was the time I realized that we people always talk about this, but they have resilience, they have courage. And look at the selflessness of that girl who put her dad behind and she pedaled down for hours and hours and hours. And poor father was so tired, could not eat. And she took her father to the safety. So that was the time I realized that how many of us would have been that courageous are these people who are so deprived from the lower classes, as we talk about. So many of them took to prostitution. Yes, there was no other way out. We easily condemn people, ye kyun ye kar rahe hain? They had to feed their families. Not that I'm endorsing prostitution. But yes, we have to be very, very understanding to people who suffer in lives. And there are people who could not get job on prostitution, as Dr. Singh rightly said. So, begging was no alternate. I remember an old lady knocking at my door and asking for this money. I said, I will give you the money. I'd rather give you food. You tell me. She says, my daughter just had a baby. She's living in one of the hutments close by to my house. And she says, we need to give her milk so that she can feed the child. So please give me some money. I said, okay, take the money and buy milk for your daughter-in-law. And she says, I am just not begging. I'm from a decent family that way otherwise. But there is nobody at home. People are working out. They were from those areas whose husbands go out and they call migrants. And we know how they all suffered during the lockdown. So I personally believe is we have to extend a kind of help, a sisterhood. Theories we talk. Sir was talking about Rabindranath Tagore. I remember I walked on Ghaire Bhaire The Home and the World, which Tagore, and was one of my favorite novels, and it was adapted. And when I was discussing with my professors at the FTI where I was studying, he says, "Man, why have you taken this particular film, Gaire Baire? It's such a problematic." Tagore wrote about it in 1905. Partition of Bengal. It's a zamindari story, and he wants his wife to come out because she was educated, and he wants his wife to come out and meet his friend. And Tagore was advanced, we all know that, and he put his character Nikhil in that form. I'm sure you people all have read the novel, The Home and the World. If you haven't, please go ahead. It was written in Bangla and it was translated in English by Tagore himself. But then once he takes his wife out from the ghaire to the baire to the drawing room, the wife starts interacting with the husband's friend, and the husband's friend tries to woo her. He is a naughty one, of course, as all men are given a chance. They would even try to woo the friends, sisters, wives, everybody. No offense meant to the men folk, please. But then Nikhil was a confident. He says, "I have given confidence to my wife to face the world. And only if she comes out of the parda, then only she will realize how do you face men." And she was slowly and gradually getting infatuated by his friend. Not that she's infatuated in the sense falling in love, but she felt, oh, he was trying to motivate her, encourage her wrongly, because there are so many guys out there in the world who try to be very friendly with you, but they might have their own agendas. I don't want to spell them. So this husband of hers was very confident. Why I'm talking about this?
Hi, friends.
This is about gender equality,
Good morning.
gender relations, which I was talking about. Men need to have confidence themselves when they let their wives go and work, rather than suspect them, their sisters, their daughters, their mothers, their wives. They may sometimes have a faux pas, sometimes may go wrong. It can happen to anybody. But let's not get judgmental about women. We let men be men. Oh, they are men. But about women, sometimes we women ourselves get very judgmental. So I think when it's very good to talk about Simone de Beauvoir. I've read a lot on her, and about Gloria Steinem, who's my favorite. In fact, I was watching this particular, during the lockdown, there's a lot of things to watch, look at nature, right? And this which recently got a Golden Globe, Mrs. America. And in that, there's a woman from the higher society, and she's like the president. And, she has other people, it's like a social work they're doing for the have-nots. But then there is a Gloria Steinem who takes a working woman with them. And now is an organization which came at that time in the 60s. And they've made a very beautiful, if you haven't watched it, please go ahead. It got a Golden Globe. And this Mrs. America is planning to be her husband's going to join the Senate. And they are from the Republican Party, as you all know, they're very rich and all. And the other people, those Democrats, the young women, they were being encouraged by the male senators also. So it was so difficult to get those rights those days, and they needed certain votes. So that's a story which is done in the serial, which I am not going to talk much about. You can find it out for yourself. And then this lady is of a higher strata, who's got high position. And there is a woman who, sort of idolizes her, and she tells her to do something, and then she realizes she has her own political agenda. She is trying to maneuver all these young women who are not exposed to all this and trying to utilize his services. And when this young girl, who is actually a lawyer, but her husband doesn't let her work, she defies her husband, she defies this lady, and she says, I'm going to find my own place, and I'm going to practice in the courts and help all these women. And they managed to, and that's history now is very much evident there. And Hillary Clinton and others came later and became part of it. But it was these young women then of the 60s who are so old now. And, and there's a beautifully articulate, and Emma Thompson, such a great star. She was doing the role which was in the negative. So you think, oh, how could she be doing that? So that was very convincing that sometimes people who seem very sweet, may not be helping the other women too. Men, well, one says, if there are some where you say, what a great guy. There's nothing greatness about it. We are supposed to help each other. Gender equality is that. If men help women, there's no greatness. If women help women, that's greater. But then, as when I talk about the gender equality, let's forget men and women. We all had to develop resilience. We all had to have courage. Men lost their jobs too. Women lost their jobs too. So we have to be supportive of each other. I am a strong feminist, but at the same time, I realize feminism is about making choices and not running down men and taking the men on the board who do not understand things. We women are very, very intelligent, much more intelligent than men. Dr. Singh, please do not mind that. Silence is a lie. Dr. Gitanjali was talking about Malala. Yes, sometimes we have to be silent. We were all taught by our mothers to be silent. Chup ro, ek chup saw sukh. But it's not always like that. We have to speak up. We have to articulate our thoughts. We have to raise a voice for ourselves, for others also. So this is what I would like to say. There has to be a selflessness also. On this very note, I just say silence is gold, speech is silver, silence is golden, but silence is not golden everywhere. That's what I want to talk about. So I do. There's no time to quote somebody or to say a poem. I think I've spoken a bit. Now we can have an interaction on all this. Thank you so much for giving me this
Yes, please,
opportunity.
all the
Thank you.
panelists,
And
whatever
Dr.
you
Sangam.
want to. Thank you, Indu ma'am. So I
Yes.
request all the panelists, if you want to interact with each other and talk about each other's views. So most welcome, and I'll just put it mute so that you can all interact with each other, and you can put yourself, you can unmute yourself, and Chetan will put everyone on the screen together.
Yeah.
As I've heard both my fellow panelists, I have one small submission to make. Whether we agree or not, it is often expected that a woman looks like a girl, thinks like a man, acts like a lady, and works like a dog to achieve a modicum of success. So I'd like to know your views on this particular aspect of women in leadership positions, especially because our topic is achieving an equal future in COVID-19 world, especially for women in leadership positions. We are not talking about let's stick to the topic on hand about women in leadership positions. So how do you think that this particular mindset impacts the leadership position? I have worked in leadership roles, and I have worked in a fairly male-dominated banking industry, especially in the leadership positions, where we have to at every step prove ourselves. And I always believe that we as women need not lose our essential femininity to, prove ourselves. But this has been, this has been an issue, that women have to think like men to achieve some modicum of success. And there is this competitive spirit which we call the competition, and several times this competition is not about equal choices. So I'd like I'd like
Can I come in?
Please.
Can I come in?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
I totally
Let's have the male perspective first.
leadership.
Ma'am, excuse me.
Okay,
Let's have the
that's
male
great.
perspective.
That's
So that
great.
there's an alternation of thoughts, Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
ma'am. Masculinity and femininity
Correct.
both are created by man only. If somebody tells that a woman has some kind of mamata, that may be present even in a man. It's a
Yes, sir.
feeling. Nobody is deprived of it. But if you ask, 100 women, 90, I think all 100 will say that they have mamata. Even the idea of mamata is not an idea created by women. It is created by men. Many a times, instead of putting another in the prison, we put ourselves in the prison. But our prison is bigger than your prison. It means you are in prison, I am not in the prison. Because when you are outside, your space is small. And I am in the prison, but my space is bigger. Then who is in the prison? So the males are very smart. throughout the history. That's why they are in the ruling position. If women want to be so, they have to struggle a lot. They should have a long history of ideas. This is what Virginia Woolf, when she wrote A Room of One's Own, she says. Why men are educated? Because they instituted institutions. They gave money, they instituted fellowships. But women, she says, my grandmother didn't do anything like this. That's why I am struggling. If women or anybody, if you want, you have to create.
True.
If you look into this, the history of family, private property, and the origin of state by Engels, he very clearly says, at a particular time in history, the society turned from matrilineal to patrilineal. In their history, they have, in their literary history, they have the example. Even in our own literary history, we have the example. I just forgot the story wherein I think it is Parshuram who killed his mother for his father. Later on, his father revives. So this is how the women becomes secondary to men. Of course, the story is written by men, so why it should not be written from man's point of view? When you say a woman should think like man means no, the institution is created by man only. And you have to preserve your femininity because femininity is also created by man, and we want to see you like that as well. We want you to be in the dual role. We means the phalangocentric construction has such a long history, and it is such a powerful institution that to get out of it may take another 300-400 years. True. If people work consistently to loosen it. That's why not just women, people of all gender identities are considered dangers to it. It may be, some women taking drinks in Bangalore pub, they are attacked. So drinking is a crime and tearing their clothes is a nationalist act. See, this is how every time something happens to a woman, some big leaders come up and start talking about culture. Because they want you to work without claiming equality. The women may be working more, but equality is denied. After all, the rulers are rulers. Thank you.
We are very fortunate to have a very sensitive gentleman amidst us. We are very fortunate to have a very sensitive gentleman amidst us. Normally, this is not. Thank you so much.
So, Ma'am, Indu, we'd like to hear your views also.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so glad that we have Dr. Jai Singh with us, who's really sensitized, gender sensitized. This is what exactly I was talking about. The gender sensitization, women could be perhaps lesser gender sensitized than the men, like Dr. Jai Singh was talking about. Women sometimes internalize patriarchy. The mother-in-law who maltreats her daughter-in-law, she's internalized patriarchy. Similarly, a women boss, since we are talking about leadership, she can act very unruly, she can be very bossy. The male boss could be doing that, we accept it. But when the women boss does it, it's ye kya yaar, ye bhi waisi. We thought a woman is supposed to be more sensitive, she's supposed to be more understanding, she's supposed to be more resilient. Well, some women think they have to do that. As you say, think like a man. Thinking like a man does not make you insensitive. Thinking like a man is, there is no gender in thinking. I do not endorse this quote. Thinking has got no gender. We all have brains. We may be biologically different from the men, but everything else is the same. Our heart, our intestines, our eyes, our nose, or whatever. We may be better looking than most of the men. Of course, some men are very good looking, and no grudges against them. But then, yes, we can all think alike if we get the right education, the right ambience, and sometimes some people do not get the right education, but they have the wisdom. When I was talking about those women in the lower strata, about the crisis, they are also leaders. We become leaders because we have training to be leaders. Madam Sangam is the principal today, and she is a great leader. I know that. I've worked with her. So that leadership quality she's imbibed on the job. We all imbibe all that. But the women during the pandemic, since we are talking about the crisis, were all leaders running their homes. Women who had never used the net were helping their children with their homeworks, preparing them for their tests. Leadership does not has to come from the educated one. Sometimes the SOA people can lead. We had great leaders, women leaders in our country also. Well, I was thinking when we were talking about Shakespeare could run away and write plays and the stage plays in London and all that. But I was reading an interesting piece some long time back, had his daughter run away from the home and come down, she would have found herself pregnant. Whereas men do not have this crisis. Many a times we all want to venture out, but then we think we want to save ourselves also. But there are some who suffered and yet carried on. Nothing wrong with it. And I do not castigate all those women because we easily run, dekho wo kaisi maa baap ko chhod ke bhag gayi aur kaam karne ke liye. And some people have done wonders. अगर लड़के दौड़ के काम कर सकते हैं और लड़की को अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिल रही है and she has a resilience and challenge and things would go wrong in her life. So men like Dr. Singh, if they are going to be around, they're going to be sensitive. Like I was telling about Tagore himself. He wanted his wife to meet the world. So when we talk about Women's Day, we need the men along with us and we need to sensitize them. See, gentlemen, it's a society. You have a wife, you have a mother, you have a daughter. If not a daughter right now, daughter-in-law someday would come. So I think gender equality would only happen if men are equally. There's a 50% ratio, as Gitanjali rightly said, that Hillary Clinton said, yes, we're 50%. And Malala, and the quotes are beautiful and they're so apt even today, and they would remain apt. But at the same time, we need to sensitize men. And I'm so glad we have Dr. Jai Singh on the panel. So I should congratulate the ones who have held the seminar for choosing a male also.
I will just add here that Ma'am Renu Arora from Commerce Department, she is the one who suggested Dr. Jai Singh's name. So I'm so glad that sir, you are with us and getting all the accolades and acknowledgement from the women. That's a great thing for a man. And now,
I'm sure his wife is a happy soul.
So, as we are coming to the end of our panel discussion, I would just like to announce that due to some technical problem, Ma'am Nirmal Jaswal's video is there, but the audio is not audible. So the voice is not audible. So it would not be, I think, great to play the video without the voice because we all want to hear her voice, but sometime her views. Sorry, but sometime later, maybe in future, I'm definitely sure we'll be able to do something with her on live with us. We did miss her views today, but now I will ask Ma'am Aparna Kaushal, the coordinator for the event, to propose a vote of thanks.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
I am Aparna Kaushal from the Department of English. Hi Indu.
Hi Aparna.
Hi Dr. Padmaja.
Hi. Thank you for conferring an honorary doctorate upon me. I'm just a plain Padmaja Iyengar, but I thank you all for conferring an honorary doctorate upon me. Thank you very much.
Padmaja Iyengar, yeah? Okay,
yes,
right.
Yes, Paddy.
And thank you so much, Dr. Jai Singh, for joining us. I think, as Gitanjali has already pointed out, we could have him on the panel through somebody. And I'm so happy and glad that, we had a male as a panelist. And that's how it became a, homogeneous kind of panel, And I was listening to Indu, very interesting always. It's always a delight to listen to her. And, the emphasis that she's putting on the role of teachers as well as the women from the lower strata. That is something that we have all seen and gone through during the COVID times. I would just want to, say one thing here that, as Indu said, See, I was logged out for a major time due to some technical problem. But when I switched on, it was Indu. She was speaking at that time, so I am gathering from what she said. I think we all have seen this, that during COVID time, the families came together, the genders came together in a very nice, in a very soft way, you know. So the future that we now can see, I'm very sure that in India, we had men who were staying at home or working from home, even, doing the household chores. But as the traditional mindset of the Indian people is, we are ultimately going to switch over to the same mentality, So, but that's all right. This is how we are. And I'm reminded of Imtiaz Dharkar, who has always been, putting a great emphasis on the fact that let women be women. There's no need for us to be acting like men. But then the expectation is such, as Indu pointed out at one point of time, that अगर फीमेल जो है वो फीमेल बॉस है और वो बॉस जो है वो बॉसी होता है, तो उसको कंपैरिजन जो किया जाता है, दैट्स ऑलवेज लाइक शी इज बिहेविंग लाइक अ मेल, शी इज बिहेविंग लाइक अ डोमिनेटिंग पर्सन. So anyways, all I want to say is that I'm really, really in gratitude and thankful to all of you for joining us on this panel discussion at a very, a small time that we all gave to you. Thank you so very much. And I really, really look forward to having more sessions. I think Gitanjali has been wonderful as a moderator, and the whole team of English department who has put in all this effort. And also I thank our worthy principal and all other members who have joined here in this panel discussion. Thank you so much, Padmaja. Thank you so much, dear Indu. And thank you so much, Dr. Jai Singh. It was a delight. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you to you also.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was a great honor and pleasure. I was the only non-scholar, the non-academician here. So I felt slightly at a disadvantage because, I'm not an expert in feminist studies and all those things that you've got your doctorates on. Yet, I learned a lot from here, and I thank you all for the learning experience that you all gave me. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all of you, and thanks for saying nice words about me.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye. Happy Women's Day to
Thank you all for
all of you once again.
Happy International Women's Day to all of